Good afternoon and welcome, everyone. So today I'm going to spend the next 90 minutes discussing how do we create systems, how do we create processes, how do we create routines, how do we create good habits in our businesses so that we can grow. My name is Andrew Patricio, and I've always been a business owner. For the last 25 years or so, I've been educating, training, and inspiring business owners to build successful businesses. And here's some of the things that I've learned from these successful business owners. That if you want to build a successful business, you need to develop systems, you need to develop processes, you need to have tools that make your life easier. Because the more organized you are, the more disciplined you are, the more processes you have in place, the easier it makes for you to build a successful business. And for those of you that want to scale your business, I don't think you have any options. These are the things that you need to do to scale a business. But let us start off with the simple stuff. You know, it's really interesting when you work with very successful business owners, you learn a whole lot of things from them. And one of the things that I've learned from just about every single successful business owner that I've worked with is that every one of them plan their day. And the reason they do this is because they've got very, very busy schedules. They've got lots going on in their lives. And if they plan their day, that's one of the things that ensures that they get things done. And I encourage you to do exactly the same thing. And I know it sounds very, very simple, how just planning your day can help you improve the success rate of your business. And I believe that there's no better feeling than writing down everything you're going to be doing during the day and then getting to the end of the day and then just crossing these things out and say, I've done these things. And the technology you use is not even important. The most important thing is that you come up with a system. And I use a very, very simple pen and paper. So I have a daily routine, a very, very simple one. Wake up in the morning, read the whole internet, go for a walk, come back, have my breakfast, and then I sit in front of my computer at my desk, and the first thing I do is write down exactly what I want to achieve that day. And for me, it's very, very rewarding. Also, it gives me a bit of structure. It's almost like goal setting. You wrote that thing down, you achieved it, you crossed it out, you move on to the next thing. And it's a very, very simple process, but a very, very important one. And one of the things that I think every one of us need to do is to prioritize our daily tasks. So maybe you come up with your own little way of doing things, but here's a simple method that I use. There are certain things that have to be done today, and I need to write those things down. Maybe, for example, invoice clients, deposit checks, pay my employees' salaries, do some marketing, whatever it is, the more specific I am, the better it is. And I want you to start off your list by doing that. So you prioritize. These are the things that absolutely have to be done today. The second thing you want to do is those things that are important, but you could move forward to other days if things come up. And this sometimes happens in business. You know, things come up and you don't have time to achieve all of your tasks for the day. But the idea here is almost to prioritize. So things that must be done today, things that should be done today, and things that would be nice to do today. And you want to write all of those things down. I've got, for example, on my current list, things that would be nice to do today. And if I don't get the opportunity, or I don't feel like doing them, or whatever it is, I'll just move them on to the next day. So earlier on, I said to you that I actually use a pen and paper to do these things, but you can also use technology. There's a whole lot of apps out there that you can use. I know, for example, Google has a tool called Google Tasks. And then Microsoft has one, a Microsoft to-do list, which I use. I'm not a fan of Microsoft software, but the to-do list, I like it because what I can do is I can create different lists for different things that are happening in my life. And then as I get the things done, I just tick them off. So imagine, for example, sitting out at the doctor's rooms, waiting to see the doctor. As I'm there, I will be adding things to my to-do list. So I use a combination of traditional offline systems and then technology to ensure that I get my day done. And it's really, really important. It's really important as a business owner that you do this. The other thing I encourage you to do is to train your employees to do that. So if you've got employees working with you, you want to get them into a habit of doing exactly the same thing. So when they get to work in the morning, what they'll do is they'll start off by planning their day. Somebody just mentioned that they like the free version of Asana. I really don't mind what software you use, whether you use paper-based systems, whether you use Asana, whether you use Microsoft, whether you use Google. And the most important thing is you make a decision about what you're going to be using, and then ensure that everybody in your business uses the same system, because you want to standardize things. You want to standardize things because they make life so much easier. So when you employ new people, you can get this process. Another thing that I do is a very, very simple thing. Let's use an example. Let's say I'm going to see my accountant today. I'm going to see Angelo today. So what I will do, or let's say I'm just having a phone call or a Zoom call with Angelo. What I'll do then is I'll write down exactly what I want to discuss with Angelo, so that when I get to the end of the meeting, I can cross everything out and it's done. It's really a simple method that you can use to ensure that you get things done. Because as a business owner, what happens sometimes, what happens to me, there's so much going on that I forget things. And I don't want to forget things. I want to make sure that I get all things that need to be done. And the best way to do that is to write it down. Or let's say you want to get a bit fancier. So you're building this great business and you want to departmentalize your to-do list. You can do that. It's very, very simple. So here's an example of one you could do. Maybe put your brand at the top, maybe change the colors to suit your business. And then you'll write down, these are my 3 priorities for today. This is what I'm going to do when it comes to sales and merchandising. This is what I'm going to do when it comes to marketing. These are the admin tasks that I'm going to do today, the employee tasks and planning. So it gives you a bit of structure. And the idea here is that you use it and then you get your employees to use it, which is a really, really important thing. Because I believe that if leaders want the employees to become more efficient, they need to ensure that they practice what they preach. So if you're my employer and you tell me that I need to organize my day, you need to make sure that you do the same thing. And it's really important, because I don't know if this has ever happened to you where you've worked for a disorganized person. It can be really, really frustrating. Why? You don't really know what needs to be done. Like this, you can sit down with your employees 2 or 3 minutes in the morning. Everybody knows what everybody's doing. They don't get in each other's way. And it's a simple process that works wonderfully. So some of the most successful business owners that I've worked with over the years swear by this very, very simple system. The other thing that you'll realize very quickly is that, if you don't prioritize things, things don't get done. So I had a really good example. So when I first started this business years ago, I realized very quickly that I needed to keep learning. And one of the ways to keep learning is to read, attend seminars, attend webinars, watch TED videos, but that's basically how we learn. The problem is that often business owners will say this to me. They'll say, you know what, I wish I had enough time, but I do not have enough time to read. Here's the key thing. If you don't prioritize things, you won't get things done. And every single one of you in this webinar knows somebody like that. People that procrastinate. They know these things need to be done. They don't prioritize them, so they never get done. Or all of us know that person. We'll have an event, we'll invite them along, and they'll always be the person that arrives there late. And you realize that these people have chaos in their lives. And the problem is that if you have chaos in your life, in your business, that's going to become a nightmare, because the people that work with you are not going to like working for a disorganized person, and your customers are going to be the ones that lose out. Because if you forget things, if you forget to do that delivery, or you forget to make that payment, or you forget to invoice the client, or you forget to collect your money, all these little things that we forget that have an impact on our business. But let me tell you a story. So when I first started BizLaunch 19 years ago, I had a partner, and let's call him Tom. Tom was very, very good at what he did. He was a good writer, he was a good marketer, he was good at sales, but he had never made money in his own business. And actually, at the time that I met him, he owed a lot of family members money. And I knew exactly why. The problem with him is that his life was absolute chaos. We'd have a meeting with a big client, and he'd show up just on time or a few minutes late. This was a regular occurrence with him, regular occurrence. So what happened was he wasn't good at managing his time. He wasn't good at prioritizing different tasks. So one day I said to him, I said, what I want us to do going forward is I want us to create a weekly plan. So every Sunday night, in his case, he used to, at the time, watch The Sopranos regularly. I said to him, once you finish watching your Sopranos show, what I want you to do is I want you to spend 5 or 10 minutes planning your week, making sure that you allocate time for the things that are important for us in our business. In our case, at the time, was to grow our business. These are the things that are very important to us. So I wanted to make sure that he allocated time to do those things. And then he said to me, you know what, I have a very, very good system that I use. And I said to him, no, I don't want you to use your system. I want us to use the same system. So each one of us are going to use exactly the same system. And the reason that we're going to use the same system is that when we standardize things in our business, we can replicate them. So if you want to scale a business, you want to standardize things. So for example, if you create a to-do list, a daily to-do list, you want everybody to use the same list. If you create a weekly plan, you want everybody to use a weekly plan. And it worked really, really well for us. And the reason it worked well for us is because then I knew exactly what he was doing for that week, and he knew exactly what I was doing. And we almost became accountable to each other, which was very, very interesting and something that I didn't think would happen. Now, some of you have partners in your business, which is a big advantage. And some of you don't have partners in a business. For those of you that are one-person businesses, what I'd recommend you do is you find another business owner that you can be accountable to. So maybe what you'll do on Sunday night or Monday morning, you'll share your list with them. They will share your list with you. And then you can discuss at the end of the week what you achieved and what you didn't achieve. And try and find people that inspire you, that motivate you, that encourage you, and want you to be successful, because I think this is really helpful. I know, for example, and I was actually discussing this example last week, I was working with a bunch of young people on a program called Summer Company, which is a great program we run across the province. And I was saying to them, you know, when I initially started my business, every Wednesday afternoon, I used to meet with this friend of mine. His name is Owen. And every Wednesday afternoon, that's exactly what we used to do. We used to discuss what we were going to do in the week coming up. And more importantly, what we used to spend our time doing is discussing what we were going to do one day when we were very successful. And this is a very, very inspiring story because he was very much into sport, so loved sport. And interestingly enough, nowadays, that's one of his big marketing tools is that he sponsors sports teams, both local and internationally, actually even sponsors an English football team. But the thing that I realized is that these things came from, spending time with other business owners and discussing some of your challenges, some of the things that you're going to be doing, some of your aspirations. And I think with anything, when it comes to business owners, sometimes our goals are quite ambitious. Sometimes we've even embarrassed to tell people what we want to achieve. That's the advantage of spending time with other business owners, is you can share. You can tell them your dreams, you can tell them your insecurities, and they can relate to it. So I encourage you to find other business owners to hang around with. But let's go back to our weekly plan. So what I encourage you to do is to develop a weekly plan. And then what you do is you set aside time to do the things that help you grow your business. And in these times, the thing that's going to help us grow our business, or the things that help me grow my business, are focusing on sales and marketing. Those are the two things that I cannot neglect. I mean, if I don't do the bookkeeping this week, I can always do it next week, but when it comes to sales and marketing, I've got to keep doing that. And one of the challenges we often have, and I've heard many small business owners speak about this, is that scenario where you're working very, very hard on a project, or let's say you re-merchandising your store or doing something like that. You're focusing so much on this one activity that you neglect the other activities. And you've got to be very, very careful of that. Or we spend time on the things that we enjoy doing and not the other things. As a business owner, you need to make sure that things are getting done. The other thing you want to do that works very effectively, so if you've got a partner, you want them to also create a to-do list. But if you have employees, you want them to do the same. So we have a rule in BizLaunch is when we interview you, that's one of the questions we want to know. We want to know, how do you organize your day? And then we introduce them to the system that we use in BizLaunch. And our system is that every morning when you get to work, the first 15 minutes, you spend planning your day. And we'll pay for that, but you spend planning your day. And then every week, you'll plan your week. So when you get to work on Monday morning, the first 15 or 20 minutes, I want you to spend planning your week. Obviously, some of those things are recurring. I know, for example, when I was a retailer, certain things were done on certain days. For example, Tuesday, you place certain orders. Thursday, you place certain orders. There was recurring items. So what you can do is you can keep those on your list, but then add these different things that you want to be doing. These are tasks that you need to do on a weekly basis. They're going to help you grow your business. Maybe, for example, update your website. Maybe share some content on social media. Maybe write a blog post. Whatever it is, the more specific you are, the better it is. So let me give you another scenario. Is what happens is, because you've given your employees this task of planning their week, it also acts as a management tool. Because just think of it like this. Let's say, for example, I work for you and I've written down all my tasks for the week. And I've said to you that on Thursday, I'm going to write a blog post. What you can do, depending on how many employees you have, I mean, if you just have one or two, it's very, very easy just to go through the list and see what they plan to do. But if you have more employees, what you can do is you can randomly pick up my plan for the week, go through, let's say, Thursday, and see what I said I was going to do on Thursday. And the idea here is you almost want your employees to become self-directed, self-managed. You want them to plan what they need to do for the week. Obviously, if they're brand new employees, you're going to coach them and mentor them through this process. But as soon as you can hand off this task, and that is what I always try and do in my business, is maybe in the beginning, I will help the employee, but eventually I want them to manage themselves. And I want to work this out as soon as possible, because if they can't manage themselves, I'm going to have a problem, because then I have to micromanage them, which is not my favorite thing to do. So what you do is you create systems, you create simple processes, which ensures that your employees can become self-managed. And then, as I mentioned earlier on, you want to make sure that you give the employees time to manage, to create their weekly plan, and then they've got to share it with you. So it becomes a process. It becomes something that they know they have to do every week. It's not an option, just gets done, takes a few minutes, and then you know exactly what they're going to work on. The other thing you want to do is maybe create a system again, very much like that, a daily to-do list. If you're one of these people that really like structure and really like systems, maybe you'd come up with a system like this. Again, what are my 3 priorities? What am I going to do in the different departments in my business? So depending on the nature of your business, you would do this. And I must tell you that when I worked with my partner originally, I believe that this simple tool or this simple system or this simple process that we came up with in the beginning saved our business. Why? Because we became accountable. Both of us became accountable to somebody else. We ensured that every week the right things were being done, whether it was sales, whether it was marketing, whether it was networking, whatever needed to be done was done. And if it wasn't done, we could go back to them and say, but you said that last week you were going to meet with that client, or you said that last week you were going to write that blog post or send out that email campaign. So you got to understand that once you create structure, it makes it so much easier. And you've got to understand that human beings like structure. So in the beginning, maybe your employees will think that you're trying to micromanage them by giving them processes and systems, but they'll soon realize that the system ensures that things get done properly. The system ensures that things get done, which is really the key in any small business. The other thing that I've learned and I don't know if you like this, but I'm like this, is that I think that because I'm a business owner, because I have to be creative, I have to be innovative, I've always got to be thinking, I have this thing that I notice shiny objects. So I'm working on a project, then all of a sudden I see something else out of the corner of my eye, and that gets my attention. And then something else over here, that gets my attention. So what I've realized is that I've got a real short attention span and that I get easily distracted. And that is an absolute nightmare for business owners because there are certain things that need to be done. You know, I need to make sure that I do my bookkeeping. I need to make sure that that blog post is posted. I need to make sure that that email is sent out on a regular basis. So what I've learned to do that works really well for me is I batch items. So for example, yesterday, I spent my time creating content. So the whole day yesterday, I spent my time creating content. I've got a whole lot of events coming up over the next few months. So I spent the whole day working on that. And the way I do it is I make sure that I don't leave the task until it's done, which can be quite painful, but there's nothing worse than getting to the end of the day and somebody says to you, what did you achieve today? And the answer is that you didn't achieve anything today. So you've got to be very, very careful of that. So sometimes we think that multitasking is the solution, and often it's not the solution. Now, multitasking and making decisions is not the same thing. What we've got to learn to do as business owners, which is often what we do, is on a daily basis, we make many decisions. So make sure that you, when it comes to decision making, you just do it quickly, get to the point and move on. Because I find sometimes, because we don't make decisions, and I've seen this a bunch of times with business owners, because we don't make decisions, it has an impact on the way we run our business. So, and I mean, I don't know if this is going to work for you, but it definitely works for me. So I know, for example, if I'm meeting with business owners, I'll choose a specific day. If I'm going to be doing my bookkeeping and accounting, I will choose a specific day. And I make sure that that project is done. Otherwise, I get distracted, which is a very, very common thing. I don't think it's only me. I think it's a very common thing with a lot of business owners. Then what you want to do, now that you've created this weekly to-do list or this weekly planner, you call it whatever you like. I really don't mind. Maybe you'll have a daily to-do list and a weekly planner, whatever you want to call it. Once you've done that, then you want to have a discussion with your staff. You want to have a discussion with your staff. And if you don't have a staff member, like we discussed early on, maybe you'll have somebody that you're accountable to, and you'll sit down with them. And the first thing you'll discuss is what went well last week. So of the things that you were working on, what went really well. And I think that's also a good starting point. You know, you want to start off with the positive things. You want to start off with what went really well last week, and you want to start with a discussion, discussing that, whether it's with your employees, whether it's with your accountability partner, whatever it is, or the partner you have in business. That's the first thing you want to discuss. The second thing you want to discuss is what didn't go well last week. So maybe, for example, you went to a networking event and it was a waste of your time. Or maybe you sent out an email and the response wasn't as good as you expected. Or you wrote out a blog post, or you re-merchandised the store, or you ran a promotion, or whatever it is. You want to try and identify what are the things that aren't working out so well. And I find as a business owner that some weeks we'll have where everything goes according to plan, and then other weeks we have where nothing goes according to plan. And you want to try and deal with these things as you go along. The third question you need to identify, and all of us need to do this, is where are we stuck? You know, what are the bottlenecks? What is creating these challenges for us in our businesses? You know, why are we not delivering things on time? Why were the promotions not put up on time? Why was the email not sent out this week? And you want to try and identify where people are stuck. And with your employees, I think it's really, really important, because if they're having challenges doing a project or working on something or doing something, you want to try and identify as soon as possible what that challenge is. Then you can maybe coach them through this, or advise them through this, or send them for training, or whatever it is. But the idea is to try and find the bottlenecks in your business. What is stopping you from building a successful business? What are the challenges you're going through? That's what you want to try and identify. And then start focusing on what you're going to be working on. So maybe you'll identify things that didn't go so well, and then you'll focus on those things. These are the 3 things that I'm going to try and resolve this week. And they are tasks that you and I have to carry out that are important in our business. What happens sometimes, and all of us are guilty of this, we procrastinate or we don't make the decision, we leave these things, and a small problem turns into a big problem. And you don't want to be in that situation. Also, you don't want to be doing things last minute. I find that, sometimes we tend to leave things and leave things and leave things. And eventually they start accumulating, and little things become big problems in our business. And we've got to be very careful of being in that situation, because you want to make sure that you get things done, that you achieve the things that you need to do to grow your business. So it's really important that you reflect at the end of the day. The one thing I recommend to all business owners is that we try and plan as many things in advance as possible. Now, I know for some of us, this is very, very difficult. I know we struggle with it because people like me are saying to you, I want you to plan things in advance, and I want you to think into the future. And think of some of the things that we know we should be doing. We should create a cash flow forecast every year, and we should update it on a regular basis. We should set ourselves annual goals, setting like sales goals, profit goals, all of these type of things. And we know we should be doing those things. And I want you to understand these are the keys to building a successful business. When you are very, very clear on exactly what you want to achieve. I will go as far as saying that I find with business owners that I work with, those that are goal-oriented or focused on their goals are some of the most successful people I've met. And the reason is they know what they want. They know exactly what they want. And for some of us, sometimes when we're going through difficult times in our business, what happens is we get a little bit lost. And what I'm going to recommend that you do is every year, plan your year. So set revenue goals, set gross profit goals, set net profit goals, set tasks that you want to achieve. And then every 90 days, what you want to do is to re-look at those things. So re-look at it. And so basically you'll have annual goals for your business, and then you'll have things that you want to achieve every 90 days. And I promise you, you'll be amazed. When you start off by doing these things, you may struggle a bit because that's maybe not your thing, planning too far ahead. But once you get into a routine, it can become very, very effective. And I know I've worked with quite a few business owners on this, especially ones that are growing. And initially, they're a little bit suspicious, but quickly they realize that even with the employees, once you give them a system, once you give them a process, once you give them a way of doing things, they become more effective. So they may resist change or may not want to, set goals and things initially. But once they try these things, they realize that it makes their life so much easier. And I recommend you do the same thing. And for me, I use my Google Calendar as my planner. And if you had a look at my Google Calendar, you would see that there's a whole lot of things on there that I want to achieve. So I break up my year into 90-day periods. And every 90 days, I've got different goals that I want to achieve with deadlines. And it makes it so much easier for me to visualize these things. Because what I find with a lot of us is we tend to keep things in our head. That's what we do. I'll ask people, I'll say, so where do you have all this information? They say, well, I've got it all in my head. The idea here is to get it out of your head, put it down on a piece of paper, on a spreadsheet, on a Word document, whatever it is, and start visualizing your goals. Or maybe actually write it on a wall if that's the way you like to work, with whiteboards and write different things that you want to achieve. But I encourage you to set annual goals. The other thing I encourage you to do is to have regular vacation. I mean, I had an example recently. I met a business owner And I said to him, he says, you travel a lot. I said, absolutely. And I said, I do that because it's very, very good for my business. He said, what do you mean? I said, when I'm away from my business, I come up with some of my best ideas. And he said to me, I haven't had a vacation for 25 years. And I said, why? And he said, I'm too busy. And you've got to be very, very careful of being that business owner that is too busy. Because if your business cannot survive without you being there a day or 2 days or 3 days or even 7 days, that's not a business. That is a noose around your neck, and you've got to be very, very careful. So I learned this when I was a retailer, is what I used to do, because I was retail, we worked long hours, there was no way I could take long vacations. But what I used to do is I used to take time off every 90 days. And since then, I've recommended to all my business owners. So I encourage business owners to take time off. I encourage business owners to have vacations. I will even encourage business owners that if they can't take a vacation, I remember a guy that I met that ran a business and said, no, there's no way I can take a vacation with my family, because if I leave my business, it's a bad thing. And this guy was a really successful guy. And I said to him at the time, he was a retailer. I said, if I was you, I would just close my store. He said, close the store for a whole week? I said, absolutely. I said, that time away with your family will be really beneficial for you and your family. But more importantly, it'll give you time to think. And that's what you need to do sometimes, is you need to get away from your business and think about it. And let me tell you an interesting thing. Some of the most successful business owners that I know take more vacation than the ones that aren't successful. And I can think of a couple of examples now of people that I work with on a regular basis. They regularly, it's part of their DNA. It's part of the way they run their business. And if you have employees, you need to ensure that they take vacation too. So what I'm encouraging you to do is to get your calendar and block off days and take off a couple of days every year. It's very, very important. And it's also very good for your mental health. You've got to understand this. Being in a business every day, working long hours without taking a break, I don't think it's good for your mental health. I don't think it's good for your family. And I don't think it's good for your employees. The other thing I like to use in my calendar is events. So I will have information about everything. What I like to think of is technology is almost an extension of my brain. If I write things down, or if I use software, what happens is it takes over a task that I would have to do and I would have to memorize. So, for example, when I need to pay my employees is in my calendar. Any reminders, people's birthdays, things like that are all in my calendar. Then I don't have to memorize anything. My calendar or my system or my software reminds me. It reminds me that I have a webinar coming up today that I need to prepare for. It reminds me about different things that I need to do. So here's my advice to you. Every one of you, make sure that you set yourself annual goals. Very, very specific that you want to achieve. Make sure that you allocate vacation time. Maybe every 90 days, it's going to make you more productive, I promise you. And then in your calendar, don't remember events, put them in your calendar and they will remind you. Also, if you're ever going to meet with other people, and I do this all the time, or if somebody is going to meet with me, I always say to them, send me an invite in Google and I'll put it in my calendar, because then there's a way of reminding yourself how to do things. So here's an example of my Google Calendar. You'll see that it's all color-based. So I will have different things, different vacations I'm going on and things like that, all in my camera. And all in my camera, all in my calendar. And the big advantage here is I don't have to remember things. Or let's say, for example, this is a time I'm traveling. Okay, so I'm traveling. What I'll do is I'll attach my ticket to this. I will attach any information of hotels where I'm staying and stuff like that. So I don't have to memorize things. And that's what I want to try and do, is I want to try and use technology so that I don't have to memorize things. So I can use my brain for other things. So I can use it to be creative. So I can use it to be innovative and come up with new ideas on how we can grow my business. The other thing you want to do is sort out your emails. I find that this can be a big challenge for many business owners. And again, the solution here, I think, is to come up with a way to ensure that this gets done. So I've created a very simple routine. I was explaining to you earlier on. I wake up in the morning, I read the whole internet, I go for a walk, I come back to my desk, I plan my day, and then the next thing I do is I respond to emails. And I respond to my own emails. Every single day I respond to email, because here's what I've seen sometimes. Every now and then I'll meet business owners and they'll tell me that they have 3,422 emails in the email box. Now, when somebody says that to me, that makes me very anxious, because I know there's business in those emails. And there's nothing worse than developing a reputation for not getting back to people. Because you got to understand, as business owners, one of the things we want to try and do is to get people to know, like, and trust us. The key here is to trust us. That when people start trusting us, they start buying our products or services. So it's really important that we become reliable, that we respond to people. So every day, the first thing in the morning, after I've done my walk, after I've planned my day, I respond to emails, okay? The second habit that I've developed that works for me, and hopefully it'll work for you, is that I address all issues. So for example, if my accountant messages me and he asks me for something specific, I'm going to deal with that issue straight away. I'm not going to leave it and say, well, later on, as soon as I have time, I'm going to deal with this thing. I want to deal with issues immediately. And I think it's a really good habit to get into. Otherwise, all of you know people like this. They have very good intentions. Don't worry, we'll get it done. As soon as I have time, I'm going to deal with that. And I see people doing this over and over again. And then they say to me, you know what, I'm very busy. That's a very common thing. They're very busy. And I say to them, you know what, you're a business owner, you're obviously busy. Then I say to them, but you know what, I know this guy. His name is Elon Musk. He runs a car company. He runs a rocket company. He runs a boring company. He runs all of these things. That guy's busy. Do you understand? That guy's busy. You and I that run small businesses, maybe we have a lot going on, but this busyness that takes over our lives is something we've got to be very careful, because people have all the excuses in the world. I'll see people they'll say, I couldn't get back to you. I've had a whole lot going on. And this is what I hear people say. So just be very careful. It's creating habits. It's really, that's all it is creating good habits. Deciding that, you know what, you're going to respond to your emails. And it doesn't have to be in the morning like me, but maybe once or twice a day, you allocate time and you respond to those things. You get them out of your email box and you get them addressed. The other thing that you can do, which is very effective, I use Gmail as our corporate email. So that's the back end of our email. And one of the advantages of Gmail is, and I'm sure all software works like this, is you can create labels and you can create folders. So what I do is I create folders for each one of my clients. So the different programs that I work on, like the Main Street or some of these small business centers that I work with, they'll have their own folder. So what I'll do is I'll read the email, I'll address the issue, I'll respond to them, and then I'll move the email into their folder. So for example, now I'm running a Start a Company program for a few cities. And one of them messaged me this week and she said, you know, she's just waiting for a boss to come back and she'll get back to me. So that email gets moved into her folder so that when she responds to me next week, I can just go and retrieve the email and deal with it. So that's the way I do things. Also, what I do is I label emails. So for example, if somebody sends me an email with an invoice attached, I will click on it and I'll label it. So for example, one of the things that I'll often have in my inbox is like yesterday, I was paying some of my accounts, went to my email box, orange is my color for payables. I looked through it, found the orange tabs, and then made those payments. So it works as a very, very organized system for you and very, very easy to do. And the advantage nowadays, we have access to this wherever we are. Before, when there wasn't cloud technology, some stuff you had on your computer and others you had on the cloud and whatever. Nowadays, we have access to all of that. Another great tip, and something very, very simple, is unsubscribe from unwanted emails. There are a whole lot of emails in your email box that come in on a daily basis. A lot of them are spam, a lot of them are promotional emails, and you're not reading those things. And it's really simple to undo. You just click on the unsubscribe button and they're out of your email box. And do this on a regular basis. Otherwise, your inbox just gets all cluttered. And the other thing you can do is, sometimes this happens. We'll subscribe to newsletters and we realize we're not reading it. And what you can do in that case is just unsubscribe and maybe resubscribe a little bit later on. But the idea here is to get organized. So I was saying earlier on that I use folders and I use labels. So there's an example. There's folders on the left-hand side, and then all of these emails have little labels. So it's very, very easy for you to be able to see, just by looking at my inbox, what is due, what do I need to respond to, and which client is this for. So you try and create a system that works for you. The other thing that I use that I find very effective is I use an email tracker. And basically, this is how it works. If I write an email to you, as soon as you open that email, it'll tell me that you've opened that email, which I find very useful. And I use it also for my receivables. So the software I use, you can automatically, it'll automatically remind people that they owe you money. So the idea here is you use technology to make you more efficient. So you don't sit wondering, has that person received my email and why are they not responding? You know that they've received your email. So you can follow up and say, hi, I sent you an email. Did you get it? Can we discuss this project? So the idea is that you can move on, which I think for me is very important, because I don't like sitting back, waiting for somebody to respond to me. So the other thing we often have to do as business owners is we need to delegate. Just think of how many times you're delegating. You've got somebody that works for you, you're telling them what they need to do on a daily basis. I want you to go to this client, then I want you to do this, then I want you to do that. If it's retail, start the morning, I want you to do this, I want you to do that, or whatever it is. When it comes to your accountant, you have the same thing, your banker, your writer, your social media person, whatever it is. These are all people that we work with on a daily basis. I believe that if you really want to grow your business, if you really want your business to scale, you can't be doing everything. And maybe you can in the beginning, like a lot of us do. We start out. I was speaking to somebody the other day, and she's in the chocolate business, and she's been doing it for 1.5 years, and she's exhausted. She said she's exhausted. I said, are you making money? She said, not really. And I said, are you taking time off? She said, no. I said, that's not good for you because you're going to burn out. I said, if I was you, I would rather bring somebody in, maybe even if you start off a day or two a week, you want to delegate tasks to them so that you can at least have some time off. Otherwise, you're going to burn out. And you know what? Burning out is good for nobody, not for you, not for your employees, not for the business, not for your customers, and you don't want to do that. So I believe you can learn to delegate. I really believe this, that you can learn to delegate. The first thing you want to do as a business owner is determine what needs to be delegated. And some of the decisions that we make are related to what we like doing and what we don't like doing. So for example, if you're a very creative person and you're good at sales and marketing, maybe you shouldn't be doing the bookkeeping. Maybe you should bring in a bookkeeper once a week for a couple of hours and let them deal with your bookkeeping. So the idea is, firstly, determine what exactly needs to be delegated. That's the first thing. I know, for example, there's businesses that I've met out there that do their own accounting. And I think to myself, well, you know what? It's fine if you do your own accounting, but most of us should not do our own accounting. Why? Because it changes. Because it changes as our business grows. So somebody's asked me a good question is, How can you hire help if you're not making money? On the other hand, I say, if you hire help, you'll probably make more money. So you've got that almost that catch-22 situation. So one of the first things I would do if I was you is determine how much money you need to make to hire a person. That's the way I would do it. Because saying, for example, I cannot afford to employ somebody could be true. But until you actually calculate it, you don't know. So what I use, or what I recommend to business owners that you use, if you want to determine, can I afford to employ somebody, the solution is really simple, is take your break even, add in this person's salary, and determine how much revenue you want to generate, how much revenue you need to generate to justify their salary. But let me give you another scenario. Let's say you need a marketing person. If you need a marketing person, you don't need to employ a person full-time. Actually, I discourage you from employing a person full-time from the beginning. When it comes to marketing people, you can get somebody at a local university or online that they can work with you a few hours a day. And here's the thing that I've learned. If people are productive, and if they're good at their work, they often are productive. You don't need them for a lot of time. So some people will take 8 hours to do a job, but some people will take an hour or two, and that's because they're very productive. And I say that often even to our clients. They'll say, we found somebody that can do it cheaper. And I say, sure, you know what? That's a good decision. But will they do it as quickly and deliver on time and guarantee a quality product like we do? And often the answer is no. So what you've got to learn as a business owner is, instead of saying, I cannot afford to employ somebody, do the reverse. How much revenue do I need to generate to be able to justify somebody's salary? So that's the way you do it. And then you set yourself a target. So once we have 10 customers or 11 customers, or once we do $3,000 a week, then we can employ somebody. Okay. So that's the way I recommend you do it. And also, if you're across Ontario, there's always programs available out there that you can participate in that can help you do that. So the first thing you want to do is you want to determine what needs to be delegated. The second thing you want to do is you want to delegate tasks to people that are competent. And this is very, very important, is that every single one of us need to know what our strengths are. Every single one of us need to know what our weaknesses are. Every single one of us need to know that for our employees too. So if you're giving me a task, you need to make sure that I'm capable of doing it. So that's the first thing. Focus on people's strengths rather than their weaknesses. The next thing you want to do is you want to give me clear instructions and expected outcome. So Andrew, this is what I want you to do. I want you to write 2 blog posts. I want you to have them done by Thursday, and this is what I want you to get across. Or I want you to put up the promotions. I want you to put up this promotion, that promotion, and this is what the expected outcome is. You want to be as clear as possible. And it's very, very important that you understand this, is that if you give people clear instructions, they will probably do the job like you wanted them to do it. Otherwise, what happens, and this happens often, is we don't give people clear instructions. They don't clearly understand what the expectations are, and then they don't do the job properly, which is a big problem. The second thing you want to do once you've given them instructions is ask them if they have any questions, because people will often, not understand things and say nothing. And the reality is that if you're working with adults that English is their second language, or I don't know, maybe they just don't understand things, they often don't ask. So you want to create this environment where people feel comfortable enough to ask you. Set yourself deadlines. It's so important. Actually, I should have mentioned this earlier on when I came to discussing the calendars, is I find that when you give people deadlines, it makes it so much easier. So instead of saying to somebody, you know what, I want this done by next week, say to them, can you have this done by Thursday at 2 p.m. next week? And then what happens is all of a sudden you've given them a deadline. And I find that most procrastinators, let's talk about those people again, most procrastinators don't get things done because they don't set themselves deadlines. And they realize very, very quickly that when they do, things get done. And it's very frustrating, I think, if you're a procrastinator and you've got a whole lot of things that you know need to be get done and you're just delaying them. And here's the lesson. If you're making excuses for not doing things, stop making excuses, just work on it. Whatever it is in your business, if you're making excuses for not doing things, set yourself a deadline and just get it done. And when it comes to your employees, once they've done the job, you want to give them feedback. You want to start off with discussing the things that they did really well and the things that they could improve. So what you want to try and do is make these, projects productive. You want to give them timelines, and then you want to give them, feedback is what you want to be doing. The other thing you've got to be very careful of, and everybody that works with me knows I do not like having meetings. And let me tell you why. I find that meetings are often an absolute waste of my time. Really, they are. And I often get these random calls. I'll get random calls, usually by email, because they don't usually take calls. People usually communicate with me via email. They'll send me an email and they'll say to me, Andrew, I want to meet with you. And I say, sure, won't you write down exactly what you want to discuss with me, send it to me, and then I'll set something up. And let me tell you something interesting. 90% of the time, those people do not send me an email with what they want to discuss. So basically, what they want to do is they want to meet with me, they want to have a random discussion, and hopefully come up with a solution. And some people run their meetings like this. And you've got to be very, very careful of this. I know, for example, I was working in Portugal recently with a company there, and I met with a senior executive, and I said to her, do you have an agenda for the meeting? She said, no, we'll just sit down and we'll discuss a few things. I said, why don't you just write things down? And then we go through the list and it saves us time. She said, no, don't worry about it. And what happened was we started the meeting, we started late. She discussed a few things, came away from the meeting and said, I forgot to ask about this. And this is what happens sometimes when you set up meetings. So get into a habit. Doesn't matter who you're meeting with your accountant, with the lawyer, with your bookkeeper, with your staff, with customers, always have some type of agenda. Even if they don't, you need to create one for yourself. Ideally, you want to share it with people, especially if you're having a staff meeting. The next thing you want to do is everybody that attends the meetings, you want to make sure that they prepare. There's nothing worse than arriving at a meeting and you say to the person, did you bring that contract? And they say, no, I forgot. Nobody told me to bring the contract. And then you've created a problem because you've set up this meeting, you wasted your time, and now you have to redo this meeting again. The other thing that's a really good habit is to start and end meetings on time, because otherwise, you know what? People are just know they're going to take advantage. And what I find is that, when people say things like, we'll meet at around 2:00. What does that mean? Does that mean 1:30? Does that mean 2:30? Because if it means 2:30, that half an hour that I'm spending waiting for you at this meeting, I could be doing something productive, like, I don't know, posting stuff on social media, whatever it is. So always start and end meetings on time. And I would say, try and cut your meetings down, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it is. The shorter your meeting, the more productive you're going to be. And then once the meeting's over, and then you allocate tasks. Yeah, this is what's your responsibility. That's your responsibility. And you go through tasks. So the other thing you can do is maybe create a little bit of agenda. Maybe that's too formalized for some of you, but really just think of it as a to-do list. This is our meeting. This is the time we're going to have the meeting. And these are the things we're going to be discussing. Again, you're creating structure, you're creating a system, you're creating a process, and they make you more productive. The other thing you've got to be very, very careful of is social media. Social media can be very, very effective, but it also can take up your time. And this is something you've got to be very, very careful of, because if you've got limited time, which all of you have, if you spend an extra half an hour, extra hour on Facebook, this could have an impact on your business. So what you want to do is you want to create a bit of structure again. So have a plan, decide what you're going to do when. On Monday, we'll do a video. On Tuesday, we'll post on Instagram. On Wednesday, whatever it is, create some type of plan and make sure that anybody you're working with has a little bit of a plan. So if you're paying somebody, if you're outsourcing, for example, your social media, which is something that we often do, if you're outsourcing your social media, make sure these people are organized. Otherwise, they're going to cost you money if they're disorganized. If you're going to be spending time, let's say you decide, you know what, I'm going to spend some time on LinkedIn to try and identify some new leads, or I'm going to spend time on Facebook, or on Twitter, on TikTok, on Instagram, or whatever it is. I've noticed recently that TikTok has come up with a special program for small business. So they're targeting small businesses because they think it's a great way to market. Anyway, so set yourself a time limit. Say, I'm going to spend 30 minutes or 45 minutes or 1 hour doing these things. Again, you're setting guidelines, you're setting limits for yourself, and this is helping you conserve time. The other thing you've got to do, which is really important, is you've got to respond to customers. You know, there's no excuse for not responding. Make sure that if you have got an e-commerce part of your business, when people are asking things, you can respond quickly. So there's nothing more frustrating. You go onto a website, you communicate with the business, and they don't get back to you. Make sure you come up with a way of doing things. Set yourself some guidelines. Say to people, within an hour, within 2 hours, or within 3 hours, I will respond to these requests. And then schedule your posts in advance. And very, very importantly, very, very important, is measure the return on investment of your social media. I am really concerned that a lot of small business owners are spending a lot of time on social media and not getting the results. And they justify. How do they justify? Well, everybody's on social. What you're going to be very, very careful of, that if you're not getting results, maybe you need to change your strategy. If you are getting results, absolutely brilliant. I'm happy for you. So maybe come up with a little plan, you know, of what you're going to be doing. On Monday, we're going to do a video. On Tuesday, we're going to do a recipe. On Wednesday, we're going to do a promotion, whatever it is. You create a bit of structure, and this really helps you. And I want you to understand, doesn't matter what your business is, doesn't matter whether you're selling a product, whether you're selling a service, whether you're on the main street, you're not on the main street, all of these things help you. One of the things that I encourage all business owners to do, doesn't matter what stage your business is at, you and I need to keep learning. We need to read, we need to attend webinars, we need to attend seminars, and the more we can learn, the better it is. So understand that you've got to learn. And whatever your way of learning is, in my case, it's always books. So if I want to learn a new way, let's say I'm looking for some marketing ideas, I'll go and buy a book. If I want to learn how to do social media more effectively, I'll buy a book. Anyway, so the one day I was at a Chapters bookstore looking for some books to read, and there was a woman in front of me, and she said to this guy, "That's the book. They told me about it. Let's buy it." Anyway, so I bought this book, and you'll see it. It's called The E-Myth Revisited, written by a guy called Michael E. Gerber, and it is a top-selling small business book of all time. So, you know, I bought it because this had this little gold label on it, and I thought, let me go home and read it. Anyway, so I went home back to my office, and I read it. And I found it very, very interesting. And the reason I found it interesting, not the best written book, I must be honest. I would go as far as saying it's not well written. Anyway, but I read the book, and I found it very interesting because I'd been involved in franchising. So I'm in my early days as a business owner, I started off, and maybe some of you have heard the story, and if you haven't, I'll tell you, I started off by selling roasted peanuts. That was my claim to fame. I roasted peanuts and I sold them hot at markets. And then there I grew and developed into retail. And then from there, started running a small business development center where I ran training programs for small business. And then the rest is history. I've been doing this for the last 25 or so years. Anyway, so at the time I was running this program, and I put this book on my desk, and a business owner that was on one of our courses came in and said to me, "Andrew, what's that book like?" And I said, "It's okay. I mean, I wouldn't say it's brilliant." And she said, "Can I read it?" And I said, "No problem. Take it and read it." Anyway, she went home, she read it. She came back a week later to me, and she said to me, "Andrew, that book was absolutely brilliant." I said, really? It was absolutely brilliant. She said, I think it's going to change my life. It's going to change the way I run my business. And the concept in this book is really quite simple. It basically, if you're an owner operator, it shows you how to ensure that your business runs efficiently without you. So that's the basic concept. And you don't have to not run your business, but I think it's a really, really simple, but a brilliant concept. Anyway, so I read the book again the second time, and I never read books the second time. I don't know if anybody else does this, but I read a book once. I read it once, I put it on the shelf, and I'll probably never look at it again, unless I've got a seminar or something, I'm doing some research, and then I'll pick up books. Anyway, so I read this book again, and the second time I read it, I thought it was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. Again, I'll mention that it's not well written. And basically, it speaks about why small businesses fail, and more importantly, what you can do to ensure that you do not fail. So I read the book, and then we started a group of business owners. And I call this a mastermind, where business owners meet on a regular basis and they discuss different topics of interest. And I encourage you, if you haven't done this before, to do it. You don't have to read books, but hang around with other business owners. And these people will inspire, encourage, and motivate you as you grow your business. And I found that to be very, very effective, really, really effective. Somebody's mentioned that The Automatic Habits is also a good book. Again, the same concept, where you create habits in your life, you create routines. So I've read that too, and I find it to be quite effective. The idea is you create routines, you create habits, you create ways of doing things. Anyway, so a bunch of us used to meet on a regular basis. We'd go home, we'd read a chapter, we'd come back, and we'd discuss these chapters. And it was really, really interesting, because it was about 10 of us businesses, all in totally different businesses. Some people were selling products, some people were selling services, and a lot of the people in the beginning were skeptical. They'd say, oh, well, this is interesting, because the example they use in the book is the McDonald's example. And a lot of people couldn't relate to it. But slowly, people started understanding it. And I found this over the years, is when I first discussed this concept with people, they say, I'm not sure it's going to work for my business. And then they try it. And some of the most successful businesses I have worked with over the last 25 years have embraced these techniques, have embraced this system, have embraced these ways of doing things. But the basic concept is very, very simple, is that systems help you run your business. I mean, my business is a combination of systems. I've got a system to send out my email. I've got a system that I use to recruit new clients. My website's a system. Everything basically that I do in my business is a system, and I've got to understand that. What happens is a system is a really simple process. It ensures things that are done consistently, regardless of who's doing it. So let's go back to that to-do list that I discussed early on, is if everybody's using a to-do list, it ensures that everybody plans their day. And that is exactly what you want to do, is you want all of us doing things consistently. You don't want one person doing something one way and somebody else doing it differently, because it creates confusion in the customer's mind. And then your job is to find people to run these systems. And here's the advantage of creating systems or processes or ways of doing things. The people that you use don't have to be overqualified. I don't know if you've heard or if you've read recently, but a lot of companies are doing this. Google, for example, doesn't require that people have a degree to be able to work at Google now. All they want to know is, are you a good person? Do you understand how to program? And can you do it for us? And I think it's the same concept in small business, is that sometimes we can't afford these overqualified people. So what we do is we try and almost replicate ourselves. Because the reason you go into business in the first place is you have some skill. You're either good at sales, or you have a good eye for picking products, or whatever it is that you have, and you want to try and teach people that. And that is your objective. And then your responsibility as your business grows and scales is to lead and manage people. So you start off with the really simple systems. You create a daily to-do list, and then a weekly plan, and then you use a calendar, and then slowly you start introducing systems. Your employees start becoming more productive, and they learn your system, your process, your way of doing things. And that's exactly what you want to do. And for some of you, this concept may be too much to grasp, but you create an operations manual for your business. One of the best examples I have is a business owner that I know that runs, they've got printing machines, they're in the experiential marketing business. And I remember when I first spoke to him about this concept, he was not that excited. He said, you know what, we're in the creative business. This whole operations manual thing, standardizes things too much. And it's really interesting now that his business is scaled and grown. I go to his business and he's got a binder there. And I say, so what is that for? He says, no, we use this so that when I'm away, if my employees want to know how to work this printer, they just go to the operations manual. So I said to him, so basically what you've done is you've standardized things, you've put it in a binder, and when somebody has a problem, they just go to their binder. He said, absolutely. And he said, I started with the simple stuff. And I said, there you go. So that is exactly what I taught him when he first attended the program, is that you've got to create systems. So what I'm saying is that sometimes in the beginning, people resist this, but then they realize you've got to understand that you have special skills. You have special knowledge. I mean, I was a retailer for years. So I have an eye for merchandising. I have an eye for displays. I have those things. But the fact that I've got those skills don't benefit the business. If I can take those skills and replicate it in my employees, then I can grow. Or I can take a week off and my business still operates. And that's the way I want you to think about it. If that is the only motivation to create systems, that could be it. So that when you're not in the business still operates. It still runs well because you're not there. Why? Because you've created a system. So let me show you some very, very simple examples. Is that you can use checklists. Let's give you an example. Let's say, and I'm going to use a very simplistic example. Let's say you own a bakery business. You own a bakery business, and currently you memorize your recipes. I don't know, because you think that everybody wants to steal your recipes, so you memorize. The reality is that often people may steal your recipes, but the reason people come to you is not only because of your recipes. There's a whole lot of things that people come to you. I always say, some people can have the best product or the service in the world. That doesn't mean they become successful. What it is they've got to sell that stuff, and you've got to understand this. So you can start off with checklists. For example, a cleaning checklist. And this is one of my favorite examples, because when we had an office, this was really, really important. I used to run seminars on a regular basis, but I wasn't always around. I was traveling a lot. I was in the East Coast, the West Coast, in Northern Ontario, running seminars. So the people that I had back at my head office needed to do stuff. And one of the easiest examples I can relate to is the person that did the cleaning. So instead of them asking them, do you know how to clean? And then teaching them how to clean, what I did is the first day they started, I said, I want you to create a cleaning checklist, writing down every single thing you need to do. Then you give that to me. I'm going to go through it, edit it, make it look pretty, and we'll use this as our system. So from now on, before you leave every day that you come clean, you just go through the checklist, you tick off what's been done, and then you go. And if you're missing anything like suppliers, you just write it on there, and I'll ensure that that gets bought. So what happens is that the system itself manages the person. So whether I'm there or not, these things get done. And that is exactly what you want to do. Well, I'll give you another example, maybe something that you can aspire to, but I own a holiday home. And every now and then I'll send people there. And they'll say to me, Andrew, if I go to your holiday home and I've got a problem, what should I do? And I say, well, on the table, there's a binder, and it's got instructions for every single thing you do, whether it's how the coffee machine works, how the air conditioner works, what you need to do if the drain gets blocked. And what you do is you anticipate problems, and then you create the solution. It's the same as the cleaning checklist. So before the employee comes to me and says to me, Andrew, what do I need to clean? I say, here's the checklist. Just go through the list and you'll be okay. Or for example, merchandising. And if any of you have been into retail, which I walk into on a regular basis, and my brain is wired like a retailer, just so you know. So if I walk into your store and your floor is not clean, and your windows are not washed and your merchandise is not properly merchandised, I'm the person that notices that straight away. And I think to myself, well, you're not managing things properly, or you haven't created a checklist and trained your employees properly. Because really, if I'm a brand new employee, I'm still at university or still at high school, and I come work with you, if you give me this checklist, I can very quickly learn how to become a better merchandiser. And yes, some of the instructions that I need, shelves, every time I come to work, these could be some of the instructions you give me so that I understand exactly what needs to be done. Firstly, when you get to work, this is what you need to do. You need to make sure that the shelves are stocked with inventory. So I don't have to tell you this, it's on the checklist. You got to make sure that the shelves are clean. Make sure that the inventory is in the correct location. All of you've seen this. You go into retail stores and you'll find inventory all over the store. And usually that's the merchandise that hasn't gone around, picked up the product and put them in the right place. Make sure that facings are done daily and correctly. I mean, something that really frustrates me as a retailer is when I walk into a store and people don't have their products faced to the end of the shelf. I'm thinking, really? That is a retailing 101. Why haven't you done this? Because you've probably employed somebody, you haven't trained them properly, you haven't given them a checklist, and this is why they do this. Your shelf promotional material is correct, that your weekly promotions or merchandising correct, all these things, that employees know where all the merchandise is. These are basic business principles, but the reality is if you don't do them, they make you look unprofessional. It's these basics in business that make you look like you know what you're doing. So understand that you want to create a system, you want to create a process, you want to create a checklist so that things get done efficiently. So let's think of some of the ideas of what we can do. We can create checklists for cleaning, for loading, for working on a project, for e-commerce. We can do all of those things. We can create custom forms that we use. We can create step-by-step instructions. So for example, in my business, when I have presenters running seminars for me, instead of assuming they know what to do, I give them simple instructions. We do that when we create videos. We don't assume that everybody knows what they're doing. We write down instructions. We send it to them in advance so they know what they're doing. A filing system. By law, and all of you know this, that you need to keep your receipts and invoices for 7 years. But if you don't have a system, what's going to happen is you're going to be disorganized. And if you're disorganized, this creates anxiety for you as a business owner. Maybe you need software that automates processes. If you're an e-commerce business, it's very easy nowadays to buy software that can automate your email process, that can automate your sales funnel. All of these things are things that you can automate so you don't have to do it. Otherwise, we go through this manual process and we do the same thing over and over again, and it wastes our time and it makes us unproductive. Maybe you need pre-approved vendor lists for your employees. Maybe you need price lists. How frustrating is it to go to a business and they don't have a price list? Or maybe you need written policies, job descriptions, any of these things. All of these things you can put in one binder, and sometimes in business we call it an operations manual. You can call it whatever you like, the way we do things. But here's the thing. On a daily basis, every single one of us, we'll go and buy coffee, we'll go and buy a sandwich, we'll do whatever it is, and we usually buy it from a franchise. And what I want you to do is I want you to learn from these models. What does a franchise do that makes them successful? And you don't need to become a franchise. All I want you to do is to learn from some of their things. You'll see they, for example, have proper branding. They have uniforms. Their floors are clean. They standardize the way they do things. And people love that. Why? Otherwise, they wouldn't buy. Why would I go into a store regularly if I don't like those things? And I want you to think about it. I want you to think about it next time you go into your Tim Hortons or into a McDonald's or into a Lululemon or into a Starbucks, even though those are not franchises. But every time you go into one of these stores, I want you to look at this and I want you to think, how do I make my business like this? How do I standardize things? How do I make sure that I look like a professional? This is what I encourage you to do. For those of you that want to grow a successful business, your business needs to look like a franchise. So when I walk in, I think these people are professional. They know what they're doing. And the way you do this is by standardizing processes in your business. Your marketing, you've got to create a standard look. You've got to create a standard image for your company. It's really, really important. How do we do this? We do it by making sure our employees have uniforms with name tags, for example. We make sure that we have standard colors and logos in our business so that when you see us, you recognize, oh, that's the peanut business down the road that sells the fresh peanuts. You've got to standardize your website, your social media, that it looks like the same business. I can't tell you how many times I go to small businesses and it doesn't even look the same, nowhere near the same. Your store signage needs to be standardized, needs to be clean. If you've got any type of lighting behind it, needs to work. These are the basics of business that often I see small businesses make mistakes. Promotion materials, little simple things like every week run promotions. Make sure that you standardize that it looks like your business. These are the type of things you want to do. When it comes to your customer service, when you say good customer service, what does that even mean? Because if for example, if I've worked in retail and this other employee hasn't worked in retail, when we say good customer service, does everybody understand what that even means if you don't give us guidelines? When it comes to your marketing, create a marketing calendar. I remember when we were retailers, in October, we used to plan our whole promotional thing for the next 12 months. And we think of events, so July, we have Canada Day. In August, we have summer holidays. In September, we have back to school, and we create themes around that. So every single time people come into our store, onto our website, or they phone us, you feel like, this is marketing people. They know what they're doing, and you've got to make this exciting. Marketing is about, especially if you're in retail, is about your retail space being exciting, because that's one of your best mediums of marketing. When it comes to your sales, how are you going to generate leads? What's your process? If you've got an e-commerce store, for example, have you created a funnel so that you get customers in and eventually they buy your product or service? Do you have a sales training process? So if I come to work for you, for example, and I'm working at your cash desk, do you train me so that I know what I need to be doing? Do you have a list of sales questions? Let me tell you something really interesting about salespeople is they ask the same questions over and over again. Instead of memorizing them, just write them down. So when you get this new employee, you give them, and you say, when you go to clients, just ask them these 3 questions. Or if somebody comes to the cash desk, ask them these 3 questions. Where did you hear about us? Did you find everything you were looking for? And is there anything I can help you with? Write those things down, put it on a board, and let them read it off as they deal with customers. This is the way we standardize things. What about lead tracking? How many times have you gone into a retail store and they've asked you for your email address? Often they don't. Why? Because they're not trained to. So if somebody comes into my store and they can't find a product, you can always say to them, what, why don't we add you to our database? And then when that product comes in, we'll send it to you. Or let's add you to our newsletter so we can tell you about different products that are coming in. The other thing you want to be doing is you want to create a habit of training your employees. Why? It makes them more productive. You want to create things that simplify your life, like inventory. How many times do you see businesses run out of inventory? Because they don't have systems. There are apps, for example, for those of you that run e-commerce businesses, there are apps that you can buy very, very affordably that you can use to project your inventory into the future so that you have enough inventory to manage your business. Sometimes it's a system, it's a software, it's a process that you use. When it comes to your administration, do you have a filing procedure? So if I walk into your office and I need to find things, can I find them? Do you have information about your client's details in a secure place so that you can retrieve it? Do you have software that you use for passwords? All of these things make you a better business owner. And it starts off with simple things, creating a checklist, for example, to open your store in the morning. So you give people a checklist. You say, when you come into the store, turn off the alarm, add cash to the cash register, clean the counters, restock the empty shelves, face the shelves. These are things that need to be done every day. Instead of me reminding you every single day, I come up with an opening checklist. I put my logo on top, and I say, use this from now on. When it comes to your people, how many times do I hear business owners complain about the employees? And it's usually their fault. We don't have, for example, simple job descriptions for each employee, so they know exactly what's expected of them. We don't have an induction program. So when somebody works, we employ somebody new, we tell them about our values, our principles, our vision, we train them up. We don't have processes like that. Then we complain about the people that we work with. Standard interview questions, standard performance reviews, where the employees actually review themselves. You can create templates, or you can go onto the internet this afternoon. There's lots of these available. Standard contracts of employment, create things like that make your life easier. If you've used interview questions on an interview and they worked for you, why not write them down and use them the second time? You want to standardize things. When it comes to your finance, standard bookkeeping procedures, guidelines for accounts receivable, your petty cash policies, all of these things are very important. And if you don't implement rules, guidelines, systems, you don't have to get very fancy. But if you don't do these things, you're going to have a messed up business. And here's the other thing. I was working with a business owner recently that I'm mentoring, and she wanted to sell the business. She wants to sell the business. And this is what I said to her. I said, you've got to build a sellable business. What that means is that if tomorrow somebody comes to buy the business, you can hand it over. You can say, this is the way we do this. This is the way we do that. This is the way we do that. So once you create systems, you also make your business more sellable. So let me summarize, and then I'm going to answer some of your questions. Firstly, you've got to get organized. If you want to build a successful business, you've got to be organized, because if you're not organized, you have chaos. And if you have chaos, it's very, very difficult to make money in your own business. Plan your day, plan your week, plan your year. These are simple things, but they're good starting points of creating habits, of creating systems, of creating routines. Learn to prioritize your time. Make sure you allocate time for the things that are really important for you. Create an operations manual, a simple manual where you have checklists, where you have guidelines, rules, and things that people need to find, and develop systems and processes to manage your business. I believe that if you do this, your chances of succeeding are much better. You're going to be more professional. You're going to look more professional. Your customers are going to notice these things. They're going to say, these people look like they know what they're doing. And that is half the battle. Half the battle as a business owner is looking like you know what you're doing, creating a good product or service and selling it there. But you need routines. You need to regularly do marketing. You need to regularly do sales. You need to regularly do these things. And if you do these things, I believe you can build a successful business. So I encourage you to use what I shared with you today and build a successful business of your own. I know you can do it with these ideas that I've shared with you today.